Seth, and in today's privacy chat, I am joined by Kapil from the Particl project. Maybe you've heard of it before. Maybe you're aware of it sort of being sort of within the ecosystem of crypto note oriented projects. But hold on, it's more than that. It's gone beyond that. And if you're not familiar with what Particl has done recently, well, that's why we have Kapil on the show. Kapil, welcome.
Hi. Hey, Seth. Pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, likewise. I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to arrange this, and then, on a Saturday, spend a little bit of your personal free time talking about cryptocurrency and privacy. Sounds like maybe you're like me and you've got a little bit of an obsession.
Yeah, I've had a long-running obsession. I've been in cryptocurrencies for a long time, certainly by cryptocurrency standards. I was aware of Bitcoin in 2011. Didn't buy then, some regrets, not too many. But actually, I started speculating into it openly in 2016 with Ethereum. I did really well in that. But it was around that time that I came across a precursor project to the Particl project, which was called Shadow Cash. And what they were pitching was the idea of a fully decentralized, privacy-focused, KYC-free marketplace, which I, from a purely speculative point of view, saw a huge amount of potential in. But also I found conceptually interesting. And as I got more and more involved into the project, I started really valuing their ethos, their vision, their mindset. I really came to respect the fact that they were on point with their developments overall. And as time passed, I actually wound up becoming an advisor on the project. So that's my background in relation to crypto. I think you wanted a bit of my professional background. Professionally, I am a medical doctor. I'm actually a consultant in emergency medicine. I'm worked over in Birmingham. My views here are my own, let me stress, and do reflect on the project. They have no relation to my professional background.
Okay, phenomenal. Appreciate the disclosure and the disclaimer, both. It's so important in this space, right? Especially here, in any developed nation, but especially in the Western countries. We have 3-letter organizations and professional associations that are always trying to nail you for something you said on the internet. So appreciate that. Let's go back in time a little bit. You mentioned 2011, Bitcoin hits your radar, and then you kind of, like so many of us who were sort of aware of it, right? It was on our radar somehow. You didn't take action at first, but then you go all in and you take massive action in 2016. It sounds like largely with Ethereum and related projects. Why the sudden interest in this Shadow Cash project, and then which became Particl? What was it about it inherently that got you hooked and caused you to take such massive action?
Okay, so for me, going back that many years in time, I was very much aware of the origins of Bitcoin, and I'm not going to beat around the bush. I was aware of the darknet market usage, how Bitcoin was originally promoted as a privacy-focused cryptocurrency, untraceable in nature, and to me, looking purely, when I saw that in 2011, I thought, this is a deflationary currency that's going to be a digital form of gold. I could see the investment hypothesis straight away. And the only reason I didn't buy at the time was when I went to the Bitcoin website, I was presented with so many different wallet options, things about full nodes, light nodes, empty GOX, all these different things, that actually I was just completely overwhelmed as someone who had and I thought, okay, let me sit on this every day, because the gateways are there, but it's that initial step of really getting your head around the concepts. I thought, every day, something in my head said, this is going to shoot up in value. Within a year, it went from I can't remember if it was $1 to $30 all the way to $1,200 within a year of me spotting that. And I switched off from cryptocurrency for 3 years because I was so frustrated as someone who made that call and didn't jump on it. So when I saw Ethereum, and this is essentially my investment hypothesis, I looked at smart contracts. I saw the article. It was from Varuni Vera on Vox. It came just after Ethereum had done the DAO and had gone from $1 to $10. And I basically learned about Ethereum through that article, realized that smart contracts could essentially eliminate the middlemen in a lot of the traditional finance processes, which would reduce the costs, which would improve the efficiency, and also reduce the time to settlement. That creates convenience, it creates efficiency, it creates speed. Convenience saves time, time is money. That is the fundamental investment hypothesis of everything. If you can create convenience, that is it. So what sold me on to Particl, which, you know, its ancestor was Shadowcash at the time, I saw the project, I downloaded the wallet. It was the most well-designed user interface of all of the wallets. Of all, you know, I'd been playing around with Ethereum's, you know, own wallets. I've played around with Bitcoin wallets, the Monero wallets, and this thing, all of those had extremely long setup times, and they had, you know, they either required some degree of command line interfaces or they just were obscure or archaic. This took me less than 5 minutes to get, and I was instantly like, these guys get convenience. And if you're going to take a concept that is almost in some ways obscure and abstract, like privacy, and the biggest problem with it, let me explain why I value privacy so much, because you cannot have I don't personally believe you can have truly free exchange of information without privacy. As soon as you remove the element of privacy in an information exchange, you render it prone to either censorship, either from external agencies or self-censorship. And if you can't have purity of information transmission, you can't have purity of idea flow, which means you can't have purity of liquidity. And liquidity is simply the exchange of information, the free flow. Now, the biggest problem to me is reconciling privacy with free flow of information, because we have so many systems in place. If you look at the current e-commerce network, it is very much, you can very easily buy and sell goods online very much near instantly. So much faster than physically walking down to a shop, having a look, and then lugging the thing home. It will be delivered to your door within a day, most things. Now, the trade-off for that is you're giving up your name, your date of birth, you're always giving up your sort of personal information. Those companies can run analytics, detailed analytics on you as a buyer, and you as a vendor, the companies can also do exactly the same. They'll run detailed analytics on you. In the case of Amazon, it's been shown that, you know, in some cases, they may actually analyze which stores are performing very successfully and create clones selling analogous products at much cheaper rates. So actually, not only are they charging you commissions, they're data mining you to see what's successful and then cloning it for their own profit at better margins. So it's a very clever business model. I call it a very parasitic business model in some ways, if you want my honest opinion. Sure. And with Particl, what really got me onto it, when you look past the concept of, oh, this is a truly decentralized potential DNM, that's the immature take. That's the simplistic take. The really clever take is saying, this brings convenience to privacy.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's phenomenal. I love the way you laid that out, and agreed on all points. Definitely. I mean, that's why I open up my my free time when I'm not otherwise consulting and doing what I do for my day job. That's why I open it up to have these kinds of conversations with various different builders in the space. And I appreciate you taking me up on it to talk more about Particl and introduce to the Mind Your Biz community more about the Particl project. So you laid out really well sort of the problem domain with lack of privacy. And I agree, again, on all points. And it can be even more sinister than that when it comes to nation state level actors mining the data and attempting to manipulate large groups of people for their ends, right? Which are, I mean, maybe they're no worse than the corporate interest, right? Than the commercial interests. Maybe it's about the same, but it does come down to, understanding more about their target audience so they can then manipulate them for whatever their ends are. And I agree. Yeah, we need more privacy in communication and especially in commerce, right? Because I think that, to your point, to synthesize a couple of things you said there, that freedom to transact financially is it is one of the most important freedoms to protect by way of expression, because I mean, we've all heard the saying, put your money where your mouth is. What if you can't do that? What if you can't freely transact that value without a third party logging that away and holding it against you at a future time, right? It has a chilling effect when people can't spend the way they feel they should. So let's talk a little bit about how Particl creates that ecosystem. And I know you had some visual aids here. I'm going to bring those up on screen once you tell me it's the right time. But let's talk a little bit about how, what does Particl do by way of decreasing the friction? You mentioned the first thing was user experience, but what else is there about Particl that somebody who's uninitiated would need to know that helps solve their problems?
So my way of looking at it is this: how do you do a truly KYC free exchange? Basically, how do I buy and sell a good between two parties without any middleman acting as any sort of formal middleman acting as an escrow, and without me knowing anything about you, Seth, and without you knowing anything about me? Forget the earlier introduction. Well, let's take this phone, for example, right? This random phone. You may say, you like the look of this phone. And I have on this marketplace, on this little phone here, I may decide to put this phone up for a value of, say, $300. Let's say US dollars. Now, when I decide to list it, this is the thing. Here's how we do an escrow without an actual middleman. You use an automated smart contract. So into this little smart contract, you basically, whenever you put this as a listing for sale, you create a pot for this automated escrow that runs on a decentralized network. You stick $300, me as the seller, as the deposit. So you actually put the value of this item that you're going to sell in as your deposit, as the seller. The buyer then says, I like the look of this phone. I'm going to put $600 in. That's twice the value of the phone. So now okay, I see you've put the full deposit in. I've put my deposit in. I'm going to ship this phone over to you. You're going to receive it. If you get it, it's in good condition, you're happy, we're both going to say the sale went successfully. What that means is you now have my $300 phone plus the escrow's released, which means I get my $300 deposit back plus the $300 you gave me, and you get half, you put $600 in, you get $300 and the phone. So that's kind of, did that make sense, or do I need to run it by again? It's always a bit funny, this one.
No. It does make sense. I mean, it's a permissionless escrow, but it does require over collateralization in order to engage, right, in this ecosystem. Yeah.
And that's the way you can basically have a two-party only KYC free exchange. Now, the Particl marketplace is a marketplace that fundamentally operates using that escrow. It has no middlemen, it has no oversight, it has no data analytics as such, or no third party doing data analytics on you or overseeing. So this is a permissionless, trustless, decentralized network, which allows you to create a marketplace, or as many marketplaces as you want, where you can stick whatever listings you essentially want to stick on. Now, these listings and these the transactions eventually all get hashed onto a blockchain. But that's not that's not the key technology that makes all of this run. What makes all of this happen is there's essentially an intermediary data layer that's applies end-to-end encryption for all of the messages that are transmitted. So whenever we put listings onto the Particl marketplace, what you're actually doing is putting an encrypted listing onto this intermediary data layer, and then a smart contract is executing again on this intermediary data layer. It's an encrypted smart contract. So there's lots of, and all of the messages that then get sent between the buyer and seller again are all encrypted. So there's a lot of work that occurs essentially off chain on this distributed data layer. It's a peer-to-peer network whereby the privacy is preserved at every level. And what I'm trying to sort of get at is that this process, it's secure, it's safe, it's free from the risk of, you're not actually giving up any of your personal information during the process of transacting. You're just giving a shipping address. I'll happy to actually demonstrate the process now, actually, if you want.
Yeah, let me make sure we've got that up on screen. Oh, I think we've lost. I think we lost your screen share there.
Let's go to that, and yeah, can you see it?
There we go.
Okay. So, I mean, look, I've been waffling a little bit, but this is the Particl marketplace. It's Particl desktop. Essentially, if you go to the website, which is particl.io, you can basically literally sort of click the install button, and it's a download. There are a couple, there's Windows, but there's a couple of other platforms for Mac and Linux as well. So it is a desktop download similar to Spotify. Now, once you download and install it, you run it, it will essentially download the Particl blockchain. This is the blockchain through which all of the transactions for the Particl network are ultimately hashed. The Particl blockchain also operates using the part token, which is the native currency of the Particl network. And that is ultimately the currency of which all these transactions are ultimately settled on. Now, Particl, the part token, is a privacy coin in that it uses ring CT. So that essentially obfuscates the buyer, the seller, and the amounts transacted. So they're essentially immune to third-party analysis. It's essentially very similar to Monero. Now, what you're doing when you download the Particl marketplace is you're downloading that Particl blockchain, syncing that blockchain. You create your Particl wallet, which I have here. So that's your Particl wallet. And at the same time, you can also connect to the Particl marketplace. Now, what this is doing when it says it's launching is it's actively connecting to that intermediary encrypted data layer, which is called the SMSG network. And what it's then doing is it's transmitting and receiving messages across all of the nodes that are hosting that network. So in turn, that allows you to then find all of the various markets that happen to be on it. Now, these happen to be the 3 markets that I'm currently connected to. The open market, which is kind of a default market that we suggest, but also this one called the Ukrainian Library and Vilac Jewelry. You've got a browser which allows you to promote markets that are being actually promoted. So, for example, if I go back to this, I can actually, if I want to, I can actually, if I scroll down, sort of spend funds. I can actually use some of my own funds to promote that market, as can the creator, and that will then cause it to start appearing in this browser here. Now, why am I saying this? Because each marketplace has its own unique public key, and unless you know that public key, no one even knows that market exists. That's the level of privacy that's actually been built in. So essentially, anyone, this is a free-to-use platform, a free-to-use ecosystem and network, which allows anyone to come in, anyone to make a market, and anyone to make a market that is super private, unless private to those who have the key. Now, obviously, this market's been promoted, so everyone can see the access key. I'm going to join this particular market. That's been added. Now, what's going to happen now is that's going to take a little bit of time to sync, but let's just see if any listings have sync. I'm going to rescan the listings. We'll just refresh them. I'll just see what shows up. Okay, so there's 3 that are coming in at the moment. So you can see already that's sort of scanning and syncing listings for that particular market. I'm going to go to the open market now.
That's brilliant, by the way. That particular retailer, they're known to accept cryptocurrencies. Are they publishing this marketplace direct? Do you know?
Yeah.
That's great.
Direct on the Particl market? Yes. So if you actually go to the open market, they actually publish their listings somewhere down as well. I believe
that's phenomenal. I know there are a couple of North American crypto influencers who purchased their nootropics direct from that particular brand. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to just take a little example here. I happen to like this sticker, for example. Going back to what I was saying about the escrow, I could save that to purchase it later. And I'm going to save this one as well, just because I like the look. I like stickers. So I'll save that. I'm actually going to execute the transaction on here. I'm going to add that to my cart. You can see like the shipping and escrow details as well. Or actually, I have to scroll down. It's funny because I'm using the second monitor setup, but you can sort of see it gives you the shipping prices, yada, yada. It'll tell you if it's shipping anywhere. You can actually chat to the vendor. So you can actually start this conversation. So it is a public conversation, but you can be like, you can send a message across the network and go, hello. Sorry, I'm going to have to unlock the wallet. This is just one thing I'm going to say is whenever you're using this, I've locked the wallet to reduce some of the security risks, but as long as the wallet remains locked, it will prevent the transmission of certain messages across the network, and that includes things for settlement. Just something to be aware of. Anyway, I've sent a message to them. I'm going to add this to my cart. That said added to the cart. I'm just going to close that. I'm going to go into my cart actually. You can see where I've already favorited those two listings. You can see the cart. Okay, so that's what point is it? Point part? Nah, I can't. That's the anyway. I'm going to select a shipping profile. I'm going to use this particular example. You can see there the item's price is 0.1, shipping's 3.9, total price is 4 part. Now you're going to need an extra 4 part for the escrow because they've opted to use double the value. So it's 100%. You can actually use variable escrows. So it can be anything from 0 to 100. So it may have been that the seller could have set the escrow at 0, but obviously the lower the escrow ratio, the greater the risk involved, if that makes sense. So I'm going to basically be putting 8 part in, and let me just submit that order. Sorry, this is a thing about using this. So submit the order. That is actually a fake address. So I'm probably going to have to re-specify the address later. Confirm the order and submit. Sorry, again, this is what happens if you lock this particular wallet. But that's
fine. That's just good crypto hygiene, though.
Exactly. So now that's been sent. That will be requested. That will eventually get picked up. Essentially, the seller, if they happen to have their client on, they can go to their sales tab. Now, I'm not a seller, but I'm trying to say if I had any listings, they would show up on this tab.
Capil, you could be though. Surely, it sounds like with your professional background. I mean, I see an opportunity here for you to list. You know, helping people sew on accessory digits or something, right? I mean,
exactly.
It's a very I realize it's a very Hollywood darknet market thing for somebody who's, you know, with a medical background like yourself to do. And forgive me being a little bit silly there, but it sounds like anybody has the opportunity to list whatever they'd like to, you know, within reason.
Exactly. And it's funny you say that. I'm a great believer in the concept of pharmaceuticals arbitrage. I'm aware that I'm not advocating anything illegal here, but right. I won't lie. It frustrates me that the prices of certain drugs in the United States are hundreds or thousands of times higher than they are in other parts of the world. So I think I'm not here to judge anyone. I'm not here to advocate anything illegal. What I am here, however, is to educate people on the opportunities and the realities that a network like this, by enabling censorship-free e-commerce, creates economic opportunities that did not exist before. It creates markets that did not exist before, and it creates profit opportunities for those who are aware of it, that wish to take on it. You know, I say, look, I am a respecter of individual autonomy, of freedom, of privacy, you know, and I see the benefits to this network. I don't see the I do see how such networks can be misused, but I see far, far more benefits in a network like this.
Yeah, I definitely agreed there. And when it comes to any bad actors who choose to use networks like this, I mean, they are networks. You can't use you can't use a marketplace like this without counterparties. So if you're a bad actor in a network like this, well, then you had better be sure that everybody that you interact with is also a bad actor. Otherwise, we'll out you. That's just what happens, right? I mean, you can if you're somebody who's doing something that's truly heinous and illegal or immoral, then yeah, there'll be people who work together to try to stop that kind of activity. Let me ask this, because I love seeing the marketplace, and that's got a very dear place in my heart as well. Open Bazaar, they made a valiant effort to make something that was decentralized, and it doesn't seem to have done quite as well as what you laid out here at Particl. They've managed to continue operation at a time when other decentralized cryptocurrency-oriented marketplaces have not done so well. It seems like another piece to the puzzle here is the basic swap DEX, because using the Particl token, there are going to be some maximalists or just people who have heavier holdings in other coins, and they're going to want to know, how do I get my hands on enough Particl to do business in a marketplace like that? Do you mind speaking a little bit of that?
Yeah. Well, I can share the screen in a minute, but it's really going to be to a slide. The basic swap DEX is live. It's a privacy-focused DEX, and it's probably the most private, as in terms of protecting user privacy, it's probably the most advanced, I believe, in terms of how it operates. Now, it is an atomic swap DEX. There are no trading fees. It's just the transaction fees for the respective coins. It supports trading of Monero. So we have managed to enable Monero atomic swaps on this as well. The other thing I would like to point
that
out,
does indirectly give access to it's two hops, but that does indirectly give access to Bitcoin atomic swaps, because by virtue of Monero's atomic swaps with Bitcoin.
yeah. So basic swap DEX, it supports Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, PivX, Monero presently, and Particl. And the idea behind this, let me explain how private it is. The actual hashes for the atomic swaps in the traditional structure, they actually occur on chain. With this, they actually occur on that SMSG, that intermediary network I'm talking about. So all the hashes for the swaps are occurring off chain. So actually, not only is it that you're doing a Monero to Particl atomic swap, which is like a ring CT to ring CT, the actual hashes, they don't appear on the chains. So anyone doing blockchain analysis, they're not going to be able to tell so easily. They'll just see, oh, part's gone from this address on the part to another address on the part. Maybe it looks a bit funny, but I don't know. That's what I mean. And it's the same for Bitcoin, Litecoin, anything that's essentially got sort of Taproot and SegWit enabled. And actually there's a few other things there as well.
That's awesome. Well, we've gone down the rabbit hole just a little bit, but since we're here, I'm curious, this SMSG network where the hashes are being stored, is it ephemeral, or is it also an immutable chain? Or like,
no, it's not a blockchain. It is just a data layer. So it's a peer-to-peer data layer. There's no token. There's no fees for this network. It uses proof of work to to prevent spamming. It does use an element of proof of work for whenever you're generating messages. So that reduces some of the spam risk, but there's not actually a token as such. This is just a layer that any blockchain can operate on. I mean, I've actually advocated, personal interest aside, I've basically said, hey guys, at some point we should get Ethereum integrated into basic swap, and it's doable. Any of these tokens, anything where you can kind of have an atomic swap, in principle, you can operate on basic swap. Just have to.
I've got to say, to your point, the moment that EVM is supported, I mean, you open the floodgates to all of the competing L1s, because the architecture is so similar, right? Where you have not only Ethereum, you inherit Polygon, BSC, Avalanche. If you know any hex maximalists, they'll crow about Pulse Chain, right? It's eventually coming with all its TVL.
The way I look at it is the SMSG layer offers a privacy layer to them. It offers this free to use peer-to-peer network that they can engage in. One thing I'm going to put a caution for now for this interview. If this is being viewed 6 or 12 months down the line, maybe different story. Right now, we're working on scaling up SMSG from 1.0 to 2.0 to essentially enable much greater transaction throughput. But for our purposes, it's an open network. We encourage people to kind of learn how to interact with it, to develop on it. One of the best ways to do that, or to start doing that, is to get in touch with us and actually say, hey, we would like to integrate into Basic Swap. Can you kind of show us the ropes? We'll certainly be happy to help you. For a lot of coins, it's surprisingly easy. I think it took Dash less than 24 hours to actually do the integration.
Wow. It sounds like then if you have with certain primitive characteristics, certain blockchain primitives, then you already have a playbook then for integration. It sounds like UTXO based blockchains.
So,
there's a bit of a playbook.
Yes, exactly. So UTXO based blockchains that support SegWit and Taproot are the easiest coins to integrate into this. So for any of the Bitcoin based blockchains, that's kind of an incentive driver. I think we're starting to see some of the benefits of Taproot. This utilizes the benefits of Taproot, not necessarily in the way of ordinals, which I think is funny, but certainly in terms of enhancing privacy.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm waiting with bated breath for somebody to start really messing with Bitcoin and printing, say, like some synthetic derivatives and such into those ordinals. It hasn't gotten as weird as it could yet. So it hasn't achieved its final form. Don't challenge anybody who's messing around with ordinals yet, because they'll rise to the occasion.
It was a nice surprise for me, let's say that. And actually very well, anyway, I'm not going to sidetrack too much, but it was very much welcome. Going back to what I was saying, the SMSG network, that like I said, that's the best ways to learn about that, to kind of reach out to us, say, would like to integrate into basic swap decks. The other reason that it would be good to actually look at integrating to basic swap decks is because the longer term plan, one of our major releases was Particl Desktop 3.3. Now, what that's done is it's refactored the code and actually refactored the architecture to make it much more modular. So the short of this is we're looking to kind of develop a web framework, first of all. So actually the Particl desktop application, we would like, firstly, we're going to need to get light client support working. So basic swap, things you got to know about it is you are downloading the basic swap client, you're installing it, you're compiling it, you know, through a Linux Docker if you're on Windows or from Linux directly. You are then downloading every single chain and syncing all of the nodes. This is a very purist approach. Now, what we're looking to now do is implement light node support, in which case it'll be fast syncing. You know, that means basic swap will be a lot easier to use for a lot more people, and then to develop a web framework. Once we've got the light syncing and web framework in, I think because Particl's architecture has gone a lot more modular, we can basically, let's say if we took Particl desktop, we could integrate basic swap into the Particl marketplace in such a way that it can be used to, say, rather than pay with part and acquire part, you're paying with Monero or Bitcoin or Litecoin or any coin that's supported by basic swap, and it uses a kind of a series of automated widget and a front end that basically goes through all the steps for you. Now, I think that's really beneficial to other cryptocurrencies because you need market makers for those sorts of setups. If you've got really solid market makers in play, you've got a continuous arbitrage opportunity whereby off every organic trade for the purchase and selling of goods, i.e. for every non-speculative trade, which is exactly what the Particl marketplace facilitates, there is an opportunity for market makers to make small amounts on the spread of each trade. So there are incentives to integrate. I think I've just kind of waffled a bit here.
Yeah, no, it's all right. Here's the funny thing. All of this is, I mean, to an audience that is totally uninitiated, all of this is important to be aware of. And I think, well, we probably could go on a bit asking about, like, you know, Oracle systems and pricing and making sure that there are decentralized sources of truth for, you know, for the DEX and for the marketplace, with that next potential integration of the DEX into the marketplace. But I mean, as somebody who has admittedly spent too long not looking at Particl, this has been extremely enlightening, and I've loved the time that we spent together talking about it. So I don't think you've gone too far yet, but clearly it's a very deep rabbit hole. Clearly there's more to be covered. There's a lot more, and it sounds like it's well documented, and that the team is hard at work just building a lot of functionality. So this is great to see, especially in the current market. If you don't mind me asking, we're recording sometime in February 2023. When this is released, it'll be a shock to the audience. Like, oh my gosh, my backlog of content for privacy projects is actually pretty extensive right now. But as of today, current snapshot of the value flowing through the Particl markets. Do you have numbers on what the marketplace is doing, or is that?
So we can do escrow counts. There are tools that exist to do it. That's the one thing. What I would say, the best estimate is current liquidity. And I'm not going to lie to you, hardly anyone knows about this project. You know, when we're talking who are in the know, developers in the Monero community, developers within the Fira community, it is developers basically who are aware of this. The marketing has been so low key. So when you're looking at what's there, it's a small community. What I want to say is we are aware of why, and we're actively building the tools to kind of support increased widespread adoption. Part of that, as I said, is integration of, you know, multiple payments via the marketplace. Part of that is ensuring that we have a robust liquidity engine in place, which is the development of which is already underway to ensure that there's reduced volatility and slippage for sellers. Part of that is going to come down to, straight out marketing and things like this. I'm not going to lie, it's an opportunity for people to get to know the project. And part of it's going to come down with partnerships. And it'll take time. It'll take time, but we're at a very interesting point, especially given the regulatory climate, that I think, I'm glad we're having this discussion.
Yeah, no, likewise. This has been it's been phenomenal. So the Mind Your Biz community certainly moving forward in the live streams. They'll start seeing updates about Particl now that you've put it like front and center on my radar. It will start tracking the progress of the Particl project. When we do our typical portfolio check-ins and such, I'll make sure that it's added to our privacy portfolio, and that we keep our finger on the pulse, so to speak, of what is being brought to the mainnet, what's being put into production on the marketplace as well. I've got an 8 terabyte hard drive here that's just waiting to go and sync basic swap decks now that I know I need to run a full copy of each blockchain. So yeah, I think this is going to be really fun measuring what the team does next. Appreciate your time.
Well, no, thank you very much. And as I said, if you want to sort of keep on top with the project, particl.news, you're getting weekly progress updates, and then periodically you're getting state of the union type addresses and much more interesting stuff. The Particl Academy for sort of technical stuff. And if you want to chat to our communities, strongly recommend you do. They're all synced up and combined, by the way, so you can use either Discord or Telegram, or I prefer Element.
Yeah, of course.
Then you can join into any of those. So the Particl project, if you go to the Particl website, it's all signposted there, which is particl.io, and get learning, and look forward to seeing you, man. Have fun. If you've got any questions, by the way, ask the community. We'll help you out.
Okay, phenomenal. I'll have all the links to the different endpoints that you mentioned before down in the description of the video. Mind Your Biz community, thank you for tuning in, and Kapil, thank you so much again for your time. This has been phenomenal.
Thank you very